how excited we are for this AI Focus Friday panel event today. It's going to be wonderful. It's great to see how many people are here in attendance. We hope that it is meaningful for all. I will take a second to introduce our panelists as well as the schedule for today, and then we'll begin. The panelists for today are Jenny Patino, a senior associate at PwC. She's representing the accounting department. Cormac Murphy, a CEO and CIO at Cash Tech, representing the economics and finance department. Dan Shaw, a generative AI specialist at Microsoft, representing data analytics and information systems. Rick Velasquez, a field CTO at Microsoft, representing data analytics and information systems. Jacob Ambule, who is a manager of CX strategy at Brex, and he is representing the management department. And last but not least, Caitlin Brooksby, who is the VP of marketing at Canary Speech, representing the marketing and strategy department. From 10:30 to 11:30 today, we'll have a moderated panel by Sherrod Jones, who's an associate professor in the data analytics and information systems department. From 11:30 to 12, we'll have a moderated Q&A, where it'll be open to the audience to ask questions. And finally, from 12 to 12:30, after the end of the event, it'll be time to network with the panelists. I'll turn the time over to you, Sherrod.
Yeah, well, thank you. Oh, we got our glasses here, so thanks for making it. Can you guys hear me okay? Good enough volume? There we go. We'll turn that way. So yeah, thank you all for being here. I was super impressed to see the turnout. I thought, given how my class responded to, are you going to be here during Thanksgiving? I didn't expect to see as many people here today. But no, this is awesome. If you guys haven't met me before, I'm Sherrod. I'm actually an assistant professor trying to be an associate professor, so I have to clarify that. Assistant professor in our data analytics and information systems department. My background, past 10 years plus in data science, and then also teaching now since 2021 in our department. I'm super excited to be here today, to have a discussion, have these panelists here. We're in a weird time, as we all know. And we're also in a time where I think we've all been to different panels and talks and workshops, classes that have talked about AI in some capacity, what it means for your future, for the workforce. So I want to try and steer this conversation as much as we can in somewhat of a different direction. I think there are a lot of those issues that we still have not gotten to a point to have a definitive answer to in any way, but I do think it's critical that we try to think of a productive path forward more than just a kind of reflection on either the doom and gloom side of it or the kind of overhyped, this will take over the world and we don't ever have to work again, right? There is a middle ground. We're still trying to build that piece out. And that's, to me, what I'm hoping we get to today. We've got the right panel here to do that today. And so with that, I just want to kind of give everybody a chance to kind of go down the line, introduce yourself, your organization, and then also how you and or your organization defines AI. So we can start down there, Dan, since Cormac, I don't want to make you jump right into it.
All right. So my name is Dan Shaw. I'm a generative AI specialist. My history at Microsoft has all been around productivity, security, collaboration. I've been with Microsoft for about 10 years. I define AI as we talk about it today and in this setting just as functions powered by large language models, not in the traditional, AI machine learning sense. I feel like most of the time we talk about it, it's more that narrowed subsegment today. So if I talk about it outside of large language models, I'll try to differentiate that.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue into Canary Speech. So I'm Caitlin Brooksby, VP of Marketing and Strategic Relationships. My background is PR and marketing within healthcare systems. But I've been working for Canary Speech for over 7 years now, but we really define AI, so we're looking at vocal biomarkers. So we're not looking at the words you're saying, but how you're saying it. Our central nervous system produces voice the same way across all humans. And it's very fascinating. There's over 2,000 biomarkers within your voice, so we can screen for depression, anxiety, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, just on 40 seconds of conversational speech. We define AI, and we don't use large language models either. So, doom and gloom, tick, that's not one thing we use actually. We're using machine learning and deep neural nets to really create these models that are disease specific, not person specific. So really exciting to be here.
Awesome. My name's Jacob. I'm from Brex, which is a financial services fintech. I've been with the company for almost 7 years, from around 100 employees to around 1,400. My experience is in customer experience and operations, so doing a lot of things, serving customers, back-end office. Brex is a full-stack financial software, so credit cards, bank accounts, expense management, travel, you name it, from enterprise to startups. That's like the software you can use to grow and spend money with your business. And so I think we think of AI in a few different ways, like mainly like kind of 3 different pillars. The first is like our product AI. It's like, how are we bringing in these LLM models into the product that customers use to make it more intuitive, make it faster, make it easier. We use it from an operational standpoint. So from that back end office, it's like, how do we augment our internal tools or our processes to be faster, more efficient? And then personally, we think of it as like corporate AI. It's like, what are the individual tools each of us can use day to day, like your ChatGPT, your Anthropic, and whatnot, to like improve the output. So I think at a core level, we see it as a tool to like augment and improve the output of the person, the process, or the tool.
Okay, well, I'm Jenny Patino. I'm from PwC, Senior Associate. I'm in the audit practice. So I'm mostly focusing today in the audit practice. So if you guys have questions about AI in tax, I'm not your gal. But I hope I could give you guys some context on what PwC is involving and what tools they're kind of like investing in for their staff members. But yeah, how do I see AI? I see it as my second brain, sadly, but it kind of does help me with like those repetitive tasks and also with like those hard accounting like topics. Like in the past, like it used to like take me out. I think that's one of the questions. So I really don't want to touch that.
Please do.
But in the past, it would take me hours to like research like a topic in accounting, like go to the codification, which now I can just input it into like ChatGPT, and it in seconds it'll give me like a brief little summary of what I'm looking for, but also give me like the guidance, the correct guidance I should follow. But in PwC, it's just the tools that they're giving us is to kind of produce a efficient audit, but also like touching those guidelines that we have to like to touch, like the AICPA require us to do. So, yeah.
Awesome. I'm Rick Velasquez. I'm a field CTO at Microsoft. We look at AI as a defining technology when it's developed and used in the right way. What do I mean there? Responsible AI. We need to be transparent in how we build things, how it uses people's data. All of those things play a big role because AI can be a fantastic producer, right, of more intelligent work, but it can work the other way around. There's some cases that I've already seen where AI should not be used, and we make that decision and we back away. So that's a little bit about how we think about AI. AI is also an input. It's not a decision maker, right? And I'll get into that a little bit later. But I think that's important to recognize too, right? Is that it's a tool. It's a tool. It accelerates, but you can't get rid of the human.
And I'm Cormac Murphy. I'm the CEO of Cash Tech Advisor Solutions, which was a spin-off of the investment management and technology arm of Adams Wealth Management. I serve as the president of Adams Wealth Management as well. The way we look at AI in our business is similar to what everyone else is saying, is that it's a tool to enable us to get onto more meaningful tasks. So whether we're doing an investment policy statement for a client or something like that, we're going to lean on the generative AI to really hit a lot of that boilerplate stuff. Risk, reward, asset allocations, all this stuff. We have the prompt pre-built that it's just going to take it and spit that out. That way we're opening up our advisors or our client advisors to really be able to add that special touch to that statement, personalize it, bring it home to the client instead of being bogged down writing disclosures and contract type language and really dehumanizing the whole process. You have to do it regulatorily, it has to be there, but that's work that's very easily shifted off. And then on the technology side of things, this is where I think that AI has had just astounding leaps and bounds over the past few years is it has taken what we used to use a team of people to code with and specialize. This guy does your Python backend, this guy is the front end developer, this is your infra guy. And we're getting project plans spit out in 30 seconds that has cloud infrastructure set up, boilerplate code set up for both front end and back end, and it has taken productivity just through the roof.
Well, appreciate that. And I'm actually curious to start down there, Dan. You are the only person on the panel here that has kind of an explicit AI component in your title. And so could you talk a little bit about your role kind of prior to this position, obviously with generative AI being a more recent development in most companies, like definitions, right?
Yep.
So speak a little bit about that and kind of how that looked before and after.
So one of the things, I even just looked it up so I got the quote right rather than me just, hallucinating and coming up with something new. There's a quote by John McCarthy, and where I know this from is it comes from Mustafa Suleyman's book, The Coming Wave. He's the CEO of AI at Microsoft. But he quotes John, and it talks about, let me get it, and it says, the term artificial intelligence, as soon as it works, no one calls it AI anymore. AI, to those of us that builds it, we like to joke that it's what computers can't do. Once they can do it, it's just software. So my role, over the last 2.5 years, 3 years ago, ChatGPT hit and everybody thought, what could this do? What if it wrote our documents? What if it scheduled our meetings? What Microsoft has done, and in my role in particular, is we've productized that. We've taken that vision of what AI could do, and we've turned it into software of what AI can do. So that's been the big shift that I've seen over the last 2 years. And what I've also seen is the pace of maturity at which that process is. A lot of you, everybody uses AI on a daily basis, whether you use it or not. Whether that's summarizing your LinkedIn posts, whether that's organizing an inbox, whether that's looking at your calendar, things like that. A lot of those features didn't exist 2 years ago, and we don't look at it and we're like, oh man, ChatGPT is great. Oh, these large language models are fascinating. These are things that are ingraining in our lives today, and they're just becoming software. They're becoming new ways of interacting. So a lot of what I do in my role is, one, pitching the vision of tomorrow, what's coming down the pipe, what can AI promise us in the future. But I would say more so is the expectation setting, because at the end of the day, my goal is to sell a product, and I need to make sure that people's expectations aren't 24 months from now, that it's understanding what AI does today.
Yeah. And then, Jake, Jenny, you all mentioned, you're in, I would say, fields that are probably more heavily regulated. And you all talked about using these tools as well, too. So I'm curious from your perspectives, what did this work look like before and after? What things are deemed acceptable, unacceptable, places where you certainly need to be leveraging, but also places where you need to pull back some?
Yeah, I can go first. So with us, there's a lot of boilerplate, and I think that's where it can be really helpful. And it gets into, you do not want to trust it, right? There's a high consequence area, so if you mess it up, that they don't care that ChatGPT or whoever put the wrong disclosure in. But what it really allows you to do is escalate certain high risk areas and make sure that people aren't lulled to sleep, typing disclosure after disclosure, and they're just bored and they miss something important. So now we have it spit out. We expect it to be, depending on the complexity of the situation, we'd hope for 95 to 100% accuracy. But we have our compliance people, the advisors, whoever it may be, they really know here are the high risk areas, and I'm going to read that and double read it. Whereas and now what would have taken them 2 hours and they would have lulled themselves to sleep is a 5-minute in-depth review of the highest risk categories.
That makes sense. Thoughts from you guys?
I was just going to say, if you think that people know what they're doing, they don't. They just don't. We've been in AI for 9 years, and when we were talking about it, people would be like, "No, I'm not sure you can do that." And then when ChatGPT came, it really brought AI into this okay, yeah, I can see how AI could be in my life. And so we're in healthcare, which is like the highest regulated, industry out there. And what we're seeing as a small company, we were started in Provo, Utah. We're a Microsoft partner, and we just received we're one of the first companies to receive the AI certification that they just released. Only about, I guess only about 5% of their hundreds of thousands of partners have this certification. But we had built ourselves to operate within hospital systems. And as we work with hospital systems, as we work with our technology partners, Samsung, LG, Microsoft, we are seeing that people are in real time using AI, putting together, what are the parameters? What do these need to look like? And it has been way more collaborative than I ever thought that it could be or would be. I just read yesterday that the administration is looking to do a bill that would cut all states' regulatory on AI and create a regulatory council. And it's because, there's going to be these fighting groups of like, who's going to win out on making the rules. But I really think the rules will be created and cemented as we continue to use it. We don't know what we don't know. I hate when people say that, okay, I do. But the truth is with AI, that's just what it is. And we have to be going in with the right motives, and not everybody has the right motives. And so, as you guys look to align yourselves with organizations coming out of college, it's really important to see, I love the question you started with. How do you guys view AI? And we're using AI to help people identify disease sooner, earlier, so they get the care they need in a more timely opportunity. So, that's my take on it. Is we're learning day by day, and it truly is like things are so rapidly changing that you just have to be on your toes. You do.
Yeah, I want a more directive follow-up on that, because Canary is in a more unique position than I think some of these other discussions where it is just leveraging existing large language models. You guys are building models. And so how have you all, have you found it's easier, harder in this era, when customers are expecting a certain level of or pace of development of the technology, when you are in the space where you need to collect data, collect sensitive data?
Yeah, well, to be frank, we are waiting currently on Zoom to finish up their build out of their AI. We're ready to go. We're going to be into their clinical notes. We are currently waiting on Microsoft. We're going to be in their Dragon Copilot and their clinical documentation. Last year we announced our ambient mode. So we're listening to a conversation. We can identify the clinician. We can identify the patient. We can within 40 seconds, then put those within the clinical notes and the electronic health record, but they didn't have the real-time processing yet. And so it's just so cool to see a startup. You can do what you want to do in this life. Like, we're dragging large companies and saying, catch up with us. But we had to put our stake in the ground 9 years ago and keep the path. And it took a lot of time, 22 patents, 20 pending. And we just said, we're going to be the expert in vocal biomarkers. And that's what we did. Mm-hmm. And so there are so many, niche areas that you can choose and just become the expert in that.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's a really, Jacob Paul?
No, thinking about that, especially your question about what's changed before and after, I feel like it's really based on perspective. I think in my day-to-day, the tools that I use, I think have changed drastically, but I think about what's the end goal, what does success look like, I feel like has remained the same. My role at Brex is really to help ensure that our support org serves our customers, they get their answers, and that we can grow and scale responsibly as a business. And so 2 years ago, that looked different in the sense of the tools that I used of how are we focusing on process improvement? How are we pushing our engineers to reduce contact volume in certain areas? Like you've all talked with support chatbots, I'm sure, in the past, and you're like, oh, this freaking sucks. Like, I hate this. And so, yeah, 000 agent, right? Like, we're trying to eliminate that. And so I think in the past like 12 months, it's dramatically changed on the tools that we're trying to use to solve that problem. And I think AI has been really impressive in the gains that it's had with like the ability to help serve customers and help improve processes. But that vision, that goal hasn't changed. Of like, I'm still trying to ensure that customers get the answers that they need, that they have a good experience, and that we can grow and scale responsibly. And now we're just kind of shifting from, now I have as many agents as possible doing these high volume, low complexity tasks. Now it's like, now I can have like a team of like really intelligent, highly trained like generalists who can solve like low volume, high complexity answers. And so I think when I think of change, it's the tools to accomplish the same task still.
I have a comment on Canary.
For sure.
Okay. If you would have told me a year ago when AI was introduced to P30C, I would have told you I hated it, because I did. I'm like, this is going to take my job. I don't like how the output is looking. But now I think P30C is kind of like not enforcing us, but recommending us to use these Gen AI tools. And it's really impressive of what you can get out of it, but it all depends on you, on what you put into it. And one thing that in AICPA and in audit, and also I think in tax, you have to always have that questioning mindset of saying like, is this true? You always have to have that human judgment. So that's something that AI will always lack, is that human judgment. And that's why AI won't be taking our jobs anytime soon, but it will be helping us to really focus on those high risk areas that need more time of a human judgment point of view. And like those like recurring items like testing for cash, testing for AP, like those we can like give to the AI and just verify the output is what we want it to look like and what it should be looking like. And also connecting the invoices to the proper dates and all of that. But at the end of the day, it's always a human judgment that will be lacking. And I feel as AI evolves, maybe, possibly, it will kind of give us the output of like having that human like judgment. But honestly, like humans will always have the ultimate say in what the output will look like and all that.
Yeah. A lot of the times, you get a lot of media sensationalized headlines of doom and gloom and all this. There is going to be a lot of disruption, like no doubt about that. But what a lot of people don't focus on is that the pie is growing exponentially. There is more money shifting and changing hands right now than in the last 30 years of our history. Anytime there's change, there's opportunity for you to slot in, whether it's clinical notes of ambient listening, whether it's consulting services, whether it's aud, whether it's fraud analysis. There are new companies, new startups that are all popping up daily that are tackling addressable markets from 1 billion to 100 billion over the next 5 years. And that'll cause a lot of chaos, but what you'll see a lot of old legacy giants falter, and you'll see a lot of new players rise. So as a new college student, oftentimes people want to go for the safe bet. You want the Amazons, the Microsofts, the Googles, the Apples of the world. Someone like Canary, they can be that next person rather than you going in as a SDR and then working your way up to an account manager over 5 years. These startups, they're the opportunity where you will see people go from an SDR to a VP in 5 years. That's how fast these things are moving. Like, I can't overstate the level of opportunity that also exists today.
Well, I heard it said just this week, a good example. So when I graduated in 2011 from a university I will not say while I'm here, but when I graduated in PR, the social media manager didn't exist, guys, okay, in 2011. Like, no one was really getting hired as that. You're a communication specialist. So that's a great example of, there are going to be job titles that do not exist today that will exist in 3 to 5 years. And so being prepared for that, being able to see what's on the horizon is super important.
Yeah, Rick,
Yeah, just to add to that. So about 5 weeks ago, I never knew Canary existed.
Oh.
Right? And we just happened to invite them to pitch your product to a very big nonprofit in Southern California that helps in autism. And to give you a kind of a flavor around the innovative use of AI, Canary came in, and what we're looking for in autism is we're looking for markers. Voice is a very big one, by the way. And how do those markers tell us when a person with autism is going to get violent, right? How can those markers tell us how to work with somebody with autism in a way that improves their life, right? And I'm not talking about just adults. I'm talking about all the way down and all the way up, because those markers, it was fascinating, by the way, to see what your solution can do, and then to think it's not in a hospital setting, a healthcare setting, but it is in a healthcare services. And if I sound a little passionate about this, because I was like, wow, that was super cool, right? But I wanted to bring that up so that you can recognize that there's so much opportunity to innovate. AI isn't going to innovate. It's the person that's going to recognize that and then innovate.
Yeah. No, I appreciate these comments. I think you all are hitting on this point that I feel as well too, right? There is a ton of opportunity that's been presented via any new technology, but specifically this one as well. But there's also this dissonance I feel too, where I have had a decade's worth of experience prior to this tool, writing code, building models, understanding this domain, and kind of grinding through it in a way, right? And now I've been given the superpower to go do it quickly, efficiently, innovate, focus on the innovation, offload some of the more tedious tasks. But now for our students, right, I mean, they're in this place where they're trying to figure out what is that next step, what's that first stepping stone to get in there. So I mean, anybody can take this, but if you were to put yourselves in their shoes today, right, take what you know about the industry today, but put yourself in their shoes. What is that thing that you would start to do? How would you find these new opportunities, new startups that are coming up that are the right place to be? They have the right vision. They're going to have some longevity, some staying power, right? Like, what are you guys thinking about in that vein? Yeah, Jake?
I've been thinking about that a lot because I've had that same, like, AI is such a helpful tool to me, but I've been in my business, I've been in my career for a certain amount of years. But I think a good example is I'm not a business graduate, didn't graduate from the business school. I'm kind of an imposter right now. But so I didn't have any background in like finance or accounting or data or anything. And now with my role with AI, I feel like I've been able to expand a lot more in the sense of like data analysis and SQL, where I didn't have that experience before. And so I think AI is a fantastic opportunity to like hyper learn a lot of different things that you can objectively approach problems that you see in the day-to-day around you and have a tool to creatively come up with solutions. And so when I think about like, in your shoes, and I have two younger brothers who are in your shoes right now, the focus, I think, is like creative problem solving, and you now have a tool and in which to approach that. And so we all see inefficiencies in our day. We all see opportunities in our day. And I think using AI can like help put you in a position to learn at a faster pace than it did historically. Because like, yes, you have the benefit of like, I learned data models for like 10 years, and now it's like I have the ability to learn that quickly with a tutor or a teacher that's right along with me, not just doing it for you, but help augmenting that change. And so I think like the ability for creative problem solving and like breaching that gap of like technical versus non-technical. Like I think there's a huge opportunity for non-technical folks, and I'm classifying myself as that, of like I can now, I'm not dependent, or I'm not like, waiting on these other teams or things. Is I can go out and do those things like myself, which I think is really exciting.
And I think to add on to that a bit, and you brought up something interesting there, using it as, well, yeah, as a teacher. I think that's there's studies out there that show like people turn their brains off when they use ChatGPT, and it will hurt your critical thinking ability. But when you're using it the right way, you should be thinking, especially as you enter a new career, like let's start, standard, software engineer right out of school. You're going to do a lot of testing, a lot of like kind of menial tasks, things like that. Well, those are going to go kind of away realistically. Like there's just so much faster to do it that way. But as you're interacting with the generative AI, don't just take its answer. Ask it why you did this. Ask if there was a different solution you could have done, because you have all this information at your fingertips and it's not always right. I just wasted a week of work because it trained itself on a deprecated Rust library. It doesn't exist anymore. And I'm like, go. And they're like, this doesn't work. So, it's challenge it, use it to learn, and it'll get you to a higher level of thinking, which is actually what kind of senior engineers used to be, right? They didn't do a lot of the coding. They looked at how other people were approaching the problems, and they were kind of poking holes on it to make sure that you're coming up with the most efficient solution. That's now an entry-level job because of this amazing tool.
Yeah, I would double down on that of, use it as a thought partner, not a crutch. It makes it very easy to fake your way through things. You could all interview for any job you want, spend an hour with it, and you could probably pass that interview. You would fall on your face day one. Like, don't try to bat outside your own league. But what you can do is you can use it to push your current limits and to expand your current limits. If I were in your shoes right now, I would probably try to determine personally what my risk-reward ratio is going into a career. You can follow Silicon Slopes. You can find 100 companies here in the Valley, even in Cache Valley, that are being funded for this. These companies right now, they're only 5, 20 people large. Reach out to the CEO, reach out to the president of the company, ask for time to talk with them, to interview them, ask them what you need. Spend 3 weeks curating that. Go back to them and say, hey, if I can do this, will you hire me? They'll say yes, and then do it. And then, you kind of force their hand and they have to hire you.
No, I 100% agree with you. I'm going to sound a little bit like your grandma, so excuse me, but there's 3 things. If you stay curious, be kind, and work hard, that's the fundamentals. And AI doesn't change that. And AI will not change that. You need to be a likable person. If you're not likable, you're not going to get hired. That's just it. I mean, people hire people they like. They're not going to necessarily hire you for your degree. Sorry. But they're not. They're going to hire you because, you're willing to work hard, you're curious, you're constantly learning, and you can roll up your sleeves and do the job. And what AI does is it kind of combines book smart and street smart, and it puts it in one localized area. And I'm specifically talking about LLMs and this form of AI. But all of a sudden you have a tool, you have a partner, but in the end it's still going to be you. And so I just think if young adults, we just need to back yourself, and it's important to do that, because without believing in yourself and in what you are capable of, you just really can't get far.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that as well. At Microsoft, we look at AI as AI drafts, humans decide. Don't forget that. Simple rule, okay? The other thing is to think about it from a problem-solving approach. So AI does not stop problem-solving at all. You still have to know the problem. You have to know where to go to look at data sources. You have to be curious and in what the answers are giving you. One of the things too, I think that's important here as well from your side, there's no substitute for experience. Get out there, personal side, your studies, use it. While you're using it, look for the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because if you don't, you're going to get biased that will bite you until you finally run into a bad or ugly, right? This will also give you the skill set to look at an output and say, that's not right. That's not right. Which brings up a whole nother level in data and data sources. AI takes a source and reports off of it, outputs as this is what it is. How many times have we seen a perfect data set anywhere? It always has bias. Always, 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 right? And so when you see this, like, oh, that sucks. Why did that happen? You know, it just did all this stuff and it's telling me stupid stuff. Don't walk away. Understand why it did it so that the next time it happens, it just comes like that. This will also differentiate you, right, to an employer from somebody else who doesn't look at it that way. Okay, I'll shut up.
No, appreciate it. Jenny, here's your thoughts, yeah.
Well, I think they all took my answers. Man, I'm kidding. But something that you guys have the advantage of like doing that research within college of using those Gen AI tools. Well, like for me, I had to learn how to use Gen AI in my workforce, in my position. So like this say you guys come in and you guys know how to like teach the system of what output you want faster than a senior associate, man, the partners and the managers will be like amazed. They're like, wow, like this college student this associate straight out of college knows how to use Gen AI effectively and faster than our current employers. That's phenomenal. Yeah, we want them in our team. We want them here for long term. So honestly, you guys have the advantage of like using those Gen AI tools before entering the workforce. But something that you guys just really need to be you in those interviews and really like showcase how you guys can use Gen AI in the workforce. In any industry you guys are going to go into, in accounting and finance and marketing, whatever, you guys showcase how you have used Gen AI as a student and tell them like, this is how I would use Gen AI as an employee.
I appreciate those thoughts. And so now we've been talking a lot present day, right? It is what it is today. Here's what we're doing. Here's how we're using it and the place we see it. What are some of those things, if you're looking forward, that you're saying to yourself, you know, this piece of my job probably shouldn't ever be automated, whether it's possible or not? And on the other side of things, like what are those things you're saying, if we had a perfect system, like this needs to happen, like this is the thing that needs to change about our industry of accounting, finance, you know, economics, data science, whatever that might look like. So kind of on both sides, right? What is that thing that you think is core to your business that is fundamentally human, and what do you think is the piece that really needs to be improved upon and efficiency to be gained from?
When I think about what should stay as a human, I think relationship building is incredibly important. It is now, and I think it will continue to be so. And I think especially like the selling aspect with our support team. Something that I'm working like actively every day to try and automate is like those simple like administrative tasks. Like you've all been to a bank and you're like, wow, this is incredibly inefficient. I can't change my name in this department. I got to go to somewhere else, right? Like to me, that is 100% what AI should eliminate, is you being able to do whatever you want administratively. But from a relationship and business side, right, like a big component of our business is underwriting and working with businesses to extend certain limits, right? I think there's an AI component to that, but then there's the relationship building status on top of that of like, okay, what's their certain criteria? What's their partnership with us? What do we see with their future looking like? And we can give them that, you know, runway they need to continue to grow their business. And so I think that's also how we approach it from a support perspective, where we had so many different products that someone was like, I only handle bill pay questions or only handle credit card questions. Now, if we can eliminate those high volume, low complexity tasks, we have this team of like AI generalists that can answer any question. And really it's like, how can we help this customer maximize their use case of Brex versus just trying to put out small little fires all day. So to me, it's like the selling, the relationship building, like that level of complexity stays with humans, and those administrative tasks like go away.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So I'm going to state this more from just a pure seller perspective, but whenever you see changes in industries and stuff like that, we will always cross boundaries. You will see entire organizations replace their customer service departments because today there's only a handful of people doing that. It's a competitive advantage. Tomorrow you'll see them bring those customer service departments back because, to what he said, the relationships run on trust, and trust is going to be the competitive advantage. Maybe not a year from now, but 5 years from now, definitely. So what you'll see is, when everybody replaces all of their service departments with AI bots, eventually it's no different than just a web search going online. Now then the differentiator, that pendulum's going to swing back the other direction to where skilled relational employees are going to become important. That's kind of like a 5-year tick-tock, from one side to the other. I laugh because I've been at Microsoft 10 years and I've gone from cubicles to open floor plans back to cubicles. Every 5 years somebody comes in with this new genius idea of how to enhance productivity. But the enhancement comes from the change. Change breeds the opportunity.
Yeah, I think it's important too to recognize that employers aren't hiring you for today. They're hiring you to take you forward into tomorrow, right? AI is just another tool in that. And if you show that you don't have that mindset, right? That you don't have the curiosity, that you're not just doing it his way because that's the way he told you to do it, but you're thinking beyond that, oh wow. Just sign your book to my best friend, Rick, right?
I love that. I think critical thinking, you asked what's not, critical thinking's going to be critical. You're going to have, I think about what do I do on a daily basis, yearly basis, like, okay, it's budgeting time, like what's my 2026 budget going to look like? And I can see what are the trends, what are the market trends, where should I be spending the budget, but I can utilize AI for all of that down to the last line, right? But in the end, I'm going to have to be held responsible, you go to that word again, responsible, for the outcomes. And so being able to critically think and to use your best, really just your best take on it and standing behind your decision is going to be important. So going back to what everybody is saying of, what are the sources? Where did this come from? Why was this the conclusion? Being able to just constantly ask yourself and ask the tools you're using, why, that's what's going to make you a stronger person and honestly a better employee.
One thing, as we're talking about where we see the future of this going, it really is pairing it with you. And so one of the things that we're investing heavily in and trying to develop is there's 1 billion AI note takers out right now. I think it's kind of cliche at this point. But what we are really invested in is real-time, kind of similar to the AI note taker that's generating content, that's searching databases and things like that. There's plenty of things that come up in a meeting with a client that's, hey, what was my performance in January of 2021? It's like, why would I know that, right? So, but having something that's in there listening to the meeting that is querying that data, that's generating a chart and bringing it right there and putting everything right at our fingertips, not to replace the person on there, to replace the follow-up emails, to have that confidence and that trust get built through this tool, not replaced by it. Because it's like, man, I go in there, they answer every question that I have. It's a very productive hour-long meeting. We get to, and then, I'm feeling good about my financial future and I'm out the door.
So at P3C, I think my practice, the private side, we're like the guinea pigs. They're trying to see what can Gen AI do? What kind of tasks can they take over? And so some of the tasks that it can take over as of right now, it can test operating expenses and revenue at point in time. So that gives us opportunity to focus on those those complex accounting stuff and those non-recurring transactions. So I think how I see in the future, what P3C is going to be investing in is doing more, like having it test more of like the low risk areas. So so us, the senior associates, managers, and also associates can test those non-recurring items. So we can also, like what was mentioned, like still have that relationship with the client, because I think that's extremely important, especially at PwC, especially as an auditor. Like we're always face to face as a client. We always want to have that interaction with them, and we also want them to be a recurring client. So imagine AI is doing the audit. They're not having that relationship with them anymore. That is on us still. And also like going out there and gaining more clients, and kind of, instead of like having busy season only audit like about 3 clients, you get to audit 6 of them, and on the time that they need it, and more effectively. So I think that's how I see what PwC is taking AI in the future, and especially in the audit world.
No, this is helpful. And now I'm curious, I mean, you all are coming from a variety of sizes of organizations as well as different fields. Have you seen the on-ramp for your junior employees shift fundamentally, or the pathway that a typical junior employee would take from out of college into the work world? I mean, you even mentioned this some, Dan, going kind of this SDR to VP route now. Those kind of things could exist in some places.
Yeah, so my first job, so all through like middle school, high school, until I got married, early college, I mowed lawns. So my first like real job was I sold vacuums that would dehydrate lice so that people didn't have to use chemical shampoos. Like that was the startup. That was the startup that gave me the experience after like a year and a half to get hired at Microsoft. Like a lot of the times we look at these big companies, the Amazons, Microsofts, Apples of the world. Right now, those organizations are consolidating, meaning those doors are closing. I would say those are going to be difficult areas to jump straight into. 3 years from now, that may be totally different. But I would say in terms of startups, smaller, sub 100, sub 50 employee organizations, you could walk in and generative AI and these new tools, it'll give you the ability to wear 15 different hats. That'll give you the experience to decide what hat do I like best.
Yeah, to that point. So I think we've all kind of touched on it, but to start a business, you don't need this huge plethora of engineers or this huge plethora of finance and operations teams. So I think we're going to start to see so many different types of businesses pop up. You're going to have 1, 2, 10 people businesses that have really high revenue or are successful. And so I think there's a big opportunity to take a chance on startups or these small businesses. Like out of school, I went and joined Brexit, which I think when I signed, there was about 60 people. And I started as a customer experience specialist, which I feel like has this term, like connotation of like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. That's a step backwards after school. But it's like a huge opportunity to go in and learn how a business works and learn how to communicate with coworkers and learn how to solve problems in like this kind of setting. And through that, I've been able to grow and expand into like different roles. And I don't think that that's going away. And just like you said, I think it augments your ability to expand more. So now when I started in customer experience, I was like, great, I could go into maybe a relationship manager role or maybe like an operations role. But now if we can breach this like technical, non-technical gap, what if you join as a customer experience and you can join into the data side? Like a lot of my work every day is like merging together our data points and then the experience of the customer. And so it's like, how can I improve both of those things together? Your experience in these entry-level positions is highly valuable, and then it allows you to continue to grow. So personally, and I think like at Brex and financial services, I still see a very similar path of these entry-level roles and then growth and expansion like within the business. And all these new companies that I'm very confident will continue to pop up that you can do a very similar thing.
One thing we've found with our hiring of new people has been just expectations are higher now. Because it used to be you got to stay in this very narrow lane, and it's just like do this for 3 years, and then we'll widen out that lane a little bit, and so on and so forth. Whereas now it's almost like, oh, I don't really know that, I haven't done that before. The expectation isn't that you do it perfectly, but coming with like no work whatsoever is now no longer acceptable. Hey, I tried this. Am I on the right path? Here's what I'm doing. And getting out of that lane quickly. Because I think what AI is going to force us to do is shift between lanes very quickly, as people have pointed out, there's going to be lanes that just don't exist anymore, and there's going to be lanes that we never thought of. And so really building that skill set is important, but it makes us much, much more demanding on entry-level people, especially on the technology side. With that, though, there's always a balance, I think, as you're looking for your first job. Name brands matter. Like if we get a resume and someone's worked at Microsoft, Amazon, something like that, you know, they've Goldman Sachs, like we are going to look at that, and that is going to be looked upon favorably. However, those are the roles where they're most likely got put in a lane. Big companies turn very slowly, and they may not have had that same ability to jump lanes and get that broader knowledge that I think is going to be useful there. So balancing that your first year out of school, I think, is a challenge. The good news is, you know, it's kind of make sure you find the right one. I think a lot of people have said startups. Startups are great because they do allow you to spread out really well. But I wouldn't take away too much from, like, brand names do matter, and they do help you get to top of stack.
Yeah, and my follow-up with that would be, don't wait on the brand name. A lot of you probably need a stepping stone. I went for the brand name. I knew I wanted to work for Microsoft. But like, once again, that risk reward. If you're unemployed, what's the risk of working at a startup for 6-8 months? Not a lot. What's the reward? Well, employability. Like, chart out what that ladder is. Because, I mean, I know at least at Microsoft, we get probably 300,000 applicants for 5,000 internships. It's not super high gambling odds.
I don't disagree with either of you, but I do come from a startup background, and I've seen a number of name brand individuals compared to people born and bred in startups, and I think it's
different.
Yeah, it's different.
So I worked for 3M after Intermountain Healthcare. It doubled my salary. It was a fantastic. I was so excited, and I love the people I work with, but a lot of the individuals I work with, they would keep saying, well, we've done this for 25 years. I've been here for 30. I was 26, turning 27, probably, yep. And I left for a startup that actually failed. So I left my big, corporate job and took a risk. Didn't pan out, but I would not change my decision, 10 years later, because the skills that I gained and just being able to be scrappy, like that's what has propelled me to where I am now in my career. So I've seen it firsthand, I've lived it.
I guess I would ask a question to the panel too, of would you find it easier to take those risks while you're in and right out of college, or take them in your current state?
Yeah, definitely 10 years ago.
Exactly.
a lot easier now.
Before kids, before family.
It might feel super risky now,
Yeah.
but like now is the time
To take
for
risks.
that trial and error.
Yeah.
Most of you don't have kids, some of you may or may not be married. Once you start to settle, that risk becomes a lot more daunting.
Yeah, I'll hit you with the tech word, but you want to optimize. For skill development. I think that's like the most important, is just like the breadth of exposure, the breadth to skill development. Like that's truly, I think, in like your first 5 years, I tried to optimize as much for skill development. I feel like I've been at Brex close to 7 years. I feel like there was a pretty big trend of like hopping every 1 to 2 years. And I feel like that was very compensation based. And while for whatever situation you're in, I think compensation is important, but as long as you're experiencing that skill development and that exposure to new environments, I think that's the most important, and compensation will follow that when you can get that. So, yeah.
So my recommendation would be make sure that you're living your life by design and not by default, right? Don't be like Forrest Gump and just, follow the feather wherever it blows. So that would be my comment.
I have nothing.
Well, I appreciate it.
I just one other thing to add too, because as you see a panel like this, it's very general, and I'd say know your industry though too, and where you're trying to go, because if like tech, for instance, they love startups, they love the scrappiness and all that stuff. Investment banking, if you don't have the right brand name, the right school, like they don't want to talk to you, right? So know your industry and know what's going to be valued there. And even if it, I came from the investing world. You grind it out on the brand names, and then you build that experience that allows you to go out and do something creative. If I did the reverse, it wouldn't have worked unless I came from like a lot of family money or something. Unfortunately, don't. But you have to follow and kind of don't get too out over your skis of like, oh, I can just do whatever I want and go to a startup and not have respect for kind of the structure of the industry you're trying to get into.
So don't work for investment banking is what he's saying. I'm kidding you.
I would say that.
A lot of my most
like
successful friends
Our
all went to
investment banking, yeah, it's true.
Goldman Sachs right out of college.
It's true.
Wait, so for accounting, was going like the industry route. So those new associates are going to be able to do those non-complex accounting things that some of the industries are like have in their companies, like stock comp and all that. I'm like giving you guys like all these like accounting terms, but so an associate will be able to test that and see what is needed to be on the lines with the accounting guidance. So with that, as a senior associate, you'll be able to confidently leave Big Four and go into a controller role in any industry. And because you'll have that time as an associate to gain that knowledge, which I didn't gain that knowledge until like now, because Gen AI wasn't a thing when I first joined. So I was doing those recurring items where what the associates were doing, and those associates are now reviewing those recurring things and kind of taking those like upper roles of testing those those complex areas. So I feel like now these new associates have the advantage of leaving Big Four, leaving public accounting, and entering industry.
No, that's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to us about this. I think the summary statement is, as much as we've talked about new technologies changing things, there's still a lot of uncertainty, there's still a lot of opportunity, and a lot of variety and breadth of experiences across all of our industries, all these domains, the sizes of companies. And so I hope that is a little bit heartening, at least, that there's a ton of opportunity still at play. So before we open up to questions, I want to thank you guys for being here. Okay, yeah, so if you need to head out to class, definitely do. But if you have a question, raise your hand, and then we have a mic circulating. So right over here in the lead. Yeah. And yeah, please introduce yourself. And
hi, my name's Griffin Ekstrom. I'm a freshman in the Information Systems Cybersecurity program here. But my long-term goal is to go to law school and try and become one of the first sort of AI specialist, like regulatory people. I want to be working in regulation of these systems. So as people who are working with this technology now, what are the ethical and regulatory frameworks that you think need to exist based on the sort of failings you've seen in the technology?
I mean, for me, it's all about transparency, right? You need to be careful, like we've said before, around AI, and make sure that you're understanding how you're getting to your outputs. That's the biggest thing I would say. If you stay ethical, if you maintain your integrity, you'll do well.
I'll go a little more specific. Definitions around weapons control and population control.
And
surveillance.
I would say, I come from healthcare, so this is more personal, but we need to protect children. We look at the generations that grew up with social media, and there were no great regulations put in place. And click if you're 13 and older. Okay, really, guys, really? This is our only So I think being able to protect the younger generations, it's on us. And so I see that as a huge opportunity. And big companies are going to have to be the ones to lead it.
On that, like the psychological damage, take social media on steroids.
Yeah.
Like you don't even know what's coming in terms of like emotional attachment, disassociation, stuff like that. You'll see a lot of that over the next couple of years.
The one thing I'd say too, this is probably just more on the technical legal side, is as it takes over more and more, it's going to be, for a law nerd, it will be interesting. I find it interesting. Is where does liability land? This is a big thing with autonomous vehicles. This is a big thing. It's like, well, if I'm using AI for 90% of my workload and I'm, OpenAI or somebody else, and they're giving wrong information or it's like that. Right now, everything falls on me, and that makes sense. But when more and more and more of the workload gets transferred to AI, that sort of stops making sense because that's an unreasonable ask of me to review 90% of our company's output, right? So it's finding that line. I think legally is going to be a very interesting question as it takes a bigger and bigger share. Autonomous driving being the obvious thing because it's taking 100% of the workload right there, and so it's a complicated question.
Lydia?
If you really want to save the world, make AI not be funded by ad revenue.
Amen.
There you go. You just solved all 95% of problems.
There's a reason I'm going into this.
Fantastic.
Hi, my name's Lydia. I'm a senior in the data analytics program right now. I had chat help me put my question together. So, but I am drawn to a lot more of the worker projects that are kind of these emerging spaces that might not have a clear defined job title or posting on LinkedIn, and applications in areas like healthcare or social justice or things where it's not as well explored. And so, I've thought about doing grad school to kind of get a more interdisciplinary view of things, but jumping into the workforce would be fun if I'm able to find something that fits those interests. So I'm curious, since it's new things and new areas, how do you get exposure to and find those kinds of companies?
I mean, personally, so I took a job right out of BYU, I said it, and I found, it was the first online master's program, that's frightening, and so I did my master's full time while working. It was very difficult years, but I did it because you can't, especially how fast the market's moving right now, I would say get into a job, just get into the market right now. And if you can figure out how to do grad school too, unless it's something that you're becoming a doctor or where it's required training, I would go and try and work in the field first, 100%.
I would not treat them as being mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
A lot of it can be done in tandem, even
Yep.
if it takes longer.
And I would agree with I do like getting a little work experience there. This is just my own personal thing. I was not a great undergrad student. I was a very good grad student. And one of them was, taking calculus in undergrad. And I'm like, I don't care what the volume of a cone is. I just don't, this is not going to apply to my life. And then I get an investment management and it's all probability and it's all this stuff. And we're building these models. And I'm like, oh, I do care how the volume of a cone. I just didn't know. And in grad school, because I've used this, I've been in the field and have a job I like, it helped me take it from this abstract and really say, okay, this is cool stuff. And so even though this example has nothing to do with what I do, I know how I'm going to use this knowledge. So I'm a big fan of getting a little, you don't know what you don't know, and getting a little taste of things. Finding something you hate is worthwhile too, because you know how to stay away from it in the future.
And I guess if I can ask a follow-up to that, so that's kind of where I'm leaning right now, but I don't know how to find the new, how do you figure out?
You don't want to be one of 100,000 resumes on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and those aren't the projects that I'm super interested
Yep.
in either.
You're gonna have to make sacrifices. I hate to say that, but it's people, people. It's not just a job listing. It's not just a company. It's, go stalk a person on LinkedIn, like he was saying, a founder, and just make yourself useful. And it might not be exactly what you envision in your mind, but it could be so much more. And that has happened to me in my career multiple times, so many times, that if I had been just stuck on something and well, I'm not going to do that because that's not my vision board, I wouldn't have gotten anywhere. And so you're just going to have to try something, that, and maybe it's not exactly what you want, but it could get you to, you don't know, it could get you to an end goal that you never imagined.
every position I've ever had has been down to a network and connection from something previous. I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever
Yep.
gotten a job from a job board.
That's what I was going to say. I know you said you're a senior, but for me, it was like extracurricular at school here. I graduated from here in 2019. I was in student government and I was in pro sales as well. I got my job through pro sales here. So did I grow up saying like, I want to be a sales rep? No. Did I grow up saying I want to be a customer experience rep? No. But I knew that I could have an exposure to new skill sets, new things, and that helped me develop like, oh, this, now I understand, to their point of like some work experience is like, okay, now I understand what I like and what I don't like, and this is the path. But I wasn't waking up dreaming like I want to be a customer experience agent, but it was a very good experience when I went and did it. So.
Another question, got a couple back here.
Hi, my name is John Shaw. I'm a
Whoa, wait a
data.
minute.
Yeah, maybe we're
I
related.
think he's got more relation to this
Yeah.
guy than me.
That's my boss's son right there, guys.
He's been evaluating you the entire time.
So, but my question is about. There's been a lot of headlines in the news about the AI bubble, whether it exists, whether it doesn't exist. So, in a future where outsourcing these high computation tasks might become more expensive, what implementation of AI that you see would you forecast to last through that potential future?
Be a little more specific, would you?
Yes. So if your company is really used to using Claude, but now Claude becomes much more expensive to use,
Yep.
that kind of scenario, do you have your own computers with a neural net that you built or you hired someone to build? Do you sacrifice some uses of AI for other uses because it's just too
So-
expensive, or maybe it's not even relevant because you don't know really if it'll pop? Yeah.
Right in your hand. It is way too inefficient to continue moving down the path of AI in the current infrastructure. Small language models are going to continue to be more and more and more pervasive.
I would say when we talk about things as a bubble, that is in relation strictly to valuations and profitability ratios. It has nothing to do with the underlying technology.
Yep.
All underlying technology will continue to move forward and permeate in every aspect of our lives. That being said, the names, the creators of those technologies might differentiate. Whether it's OpenAI, whether it's Anthropic, whether it's Meta, whether it's X, like those names might shift. The underlying fundamentals will remain the exact same. And right now, LLMs are quickly commoditizing to, if you're good with OpenAI, you're going to be good with Claude. Like, unless you're in that top 5% of power users, there's not a lot of differentiation between the two for the average user. So I don't think it matters who is developing the technology. That technology, the train has already left the station.
So, sorry, so that this is my world, investing and looking in the bubble space, and we're very high conviction that this isn't a bubble right now. That being said, and you were kind of pointing out to it, monetization on the software side, I think, is up in the air. And we go back, first off, you go back to the tech bubble, which I'm sure very few people in this room were alive for, but you go back there and there was, and this goes to his first point, the internet changed the world more than anyone could have even imagined. The biggest futurists in the 90s, but the valuations were absurd and the path towards monetization was uncertain and the market crashed because of it. AI could very much be the same thing. Our focus in investing right now, we call it, we use this analogy where, if you went out during the gold rush to San Francisco and you went looking for gold, you left broke. If you went out to San Francisco and you sold pickaxes and shovels, you did pretty well. So our focus right now is investing in the pickaxe and shovel companies, which is your Microsofts, NVIDIAs, AMDs. We're very interested, as he just said, too, edge computing is going to get more and more important. So we like people that are kind of leading the edge stuff there. Qualcomm's quite good there. And really focusing on that pickaxe and shovels when we're talking about a bubble. And when you look at that, there is nothing in the earnings right now that remotely says there's a bubble. CapEx is going through the roof on cloud infrastructure. Microsoft, Amazon, all of these companies are very, very profitable and expanding despite an arms race that would typically require CapEx that would hit margins.
I read this week that the dot-com valuations the bubble was bigger than we currently are. So where we're at, if you did like a comparison. So yeah, I think when we talk about bubbles, and I know you were kind of alluding to something slightly different, but we're gonna see change and pivots, but yeah, the opportunity are in. I love that with San Francisco and gold mining of the tools, like that's such a perfect analogy.
And if you want to chart out for you, where should you set your targets on? Try to determine that. How far are we in the pickaxes? Mm-hmm. How long is it going to be until mine development? How long until it's going to be refining the ore that's been dug out of those mines? You can think, I've got 3 years left. I've got 6 years left in school. You can use that to try to help set your targets.
So are we all living in an alternate reality of Minecraft? That is the question.
My son would be very happy if we get there.
Perfectly prepared. Yeah, we had another question. Oh, yeah.
So I've definitely learned, obviously, how important it is to become capable and marketable with AI. But my question is, if I'm in a 10-minute interview, how am I able to show that interviewer that I'm able to switch lanes, that I'm able to be someone that can be broad and use AI to problem solve and everything? How is that like a hard skill that I can actually show them before I'm at the job?
Give them examples of where you've done that. Don't just talk about it. Give them examples, you'll be fine.
I think just being aware, like what you just said, check, right? Like already you're thinking about it. A lot of people aren't thinking about that. And so just being aware is the first step for sure.
Yep. I always think it's okay to say, I don't know. Mm-hmm. As soon as somebody gives me a load of BS, they're automatically written off. Which unfortunately, like sales is kind of like part of the job. So it depends on what I'm looking for, but it's like, But it's really, I'm looking at how well they're able to articulate that articulate that argument, as well as how authentic they are in that articulation. If you're like, oh, well, let me see, and you just type their exact question into ChatGPT and start reading from your screen, you're done. But if you like walk up to the whiteboard and you're like, okay, so here's the variables we've got, like, now let me tie this together. Let me see what ChatGPT has to say about it. It's a totally different presentation.
Very astute question. You must come from a smart family, but that's my brother. A funny example, when I was in school, I interviewed for Adobe Sales Academy, Jake Rennie. I don't know if anyone here even knows that guy, but he absolutely roasted me in that interview because I didn't say I don't know, and I tried to just speak at a really high level and of just like, yeah, but he called me on it, and he absolutely roasted me, and I appreciated it after the fact. But I think, just like real world examples of like, I'm sure you've had class where it's like, I needed to improve how I could write or learn something, or maybe you've helped a family business, or in your current role as like a sales rep, you're like, hey, I use this to help that. I think honest and real world examples show your ability to think creatively and approach problems and recognize, I hope, that it's for an entry level role, right? Like I'm not expecting you to be this like data analyst or anything, but it's like you've been able to use the tools around you to solve problems creatively, and you're eager to learn and to grow. And I think that's really important.
We always, so I tend to interview engineers, research people, stuff like that. So they tend to be quite technical. And even with undergrad, someone coming out of undergrad, we just don't expect people to know. Even grad students, like if you haven't focused on a specific area of statistics, you're just not going to know it. I want to know that you can learn it. So we will purposely press people to the point, like until they do not know. And sometimes that can happen very early, and it's not like, oh, this guy's not that good or this girl isn't that good. It's that what I want to hear is, I don't know, but these are a few ways I might approach that problem. that's when you've won. If you can rattle off every equation in the world and all of that stuff, it's like, okay, anyone can memorize. And memorization is like not that important anymore because of how much information is at our fingertips. I want to see when you're in a situation that you don't know what you're doing, that you have the humility to acknowledge it, but you also can lay out a framework of how you would address the fact that you don't know it and maybe what you could do there. One very huge pitfall, though, that can come with that: do not teach employers how to do their own jobs, especially as an undergrad. It doesn't go over well.
You should be more like your competitor.
No. Yeah, and like overconfidence can be a big thing. And I haven't noticed as much with generative AI, though I think it's maybe because it's so new. But working in data and research, a lot of times we'd have interviews and people would say, we'd be going over pretty basic, regression techniques, things like that. And they'd be like, oh, I can build a neural network for that. And it's like, if you can't answer these questions, you're not touching a neural network because you don't know the basics of what's going on here. So humility, understand this is a powerful tool, but also understand there's a reason people still have to study their entire careers, get PhDs in it, do all of this stuff, is because there's a lot more to it than just typing a prompt in ChatGPT.
When I interview people, I will literally have a Post-it note and I will mark down how many questions they ask, because that's how I gauge their actual interest in the specific position versus just a job. And if people don't ask at least 5 questions in an hour-long interview about the specific job, I take that as a red flag. So, don't be afraid to be like, I don't know, here's my thoughts. How would you approach this? What would you suggest? As he said, he tries to push people to that point of where they don't know. I will oftentimes do that as well. And what I'm looking for is if they turn back and ask for advice and guidance. And you would be surprised that the vast majority of people don't do that because they don't want to look weak. They don't want to look incapable. It's an entry-level job. There's some level of expectation of that.
It's shocking how many people will start out and will say, just build us an algorithm for it, use whatever programming language you want, pseudocode it, we don't care, we just want to see it. It's shocking how many people just freeze and won't do anything. Do not be afraid to fail. Entry-level people are going to fail. Show that you can learn from it.
Other questions? A few more, yeah, one back here. You got time for about 2 more.
My name is Allie. I am an ag business major, and we talked a lot about how AI is going to take over those high volume, low complexity jobs. My question is, I know the broader market, the broader job market is expanding, but are we concerned about entry level jobs shrinking and there being a smaller market for those jobs?
In the near term, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I have a 2-person team right now, and I haven't hired. I thought I would have hired by now on our growth, trajectory, but because the tools we've been using, we just haven't had to expand. So it's not that we've eliminated, we just haven't. I mean, I guess it would be elimination of, but I wouldn't worry because I think, like I was saying to this girl in the front, you're just gonna have to make a sacrifice of maybe what you envisioned and just find something that is enjoyable enough that you think can get you to where you wanna go and just be the best at it you can. One of my favorite, there's this girl 2 years ago on TikTok that went to Brown or Yale or something, and she couldn't find a job, and this is, even a couple years ago, and she went and worked at McDonald's, and she, people just thought it was so interesting, but she was she put 100% into that, and so what, right? Just go find something and put 100% into it. Can't go wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, work to get, in your related field.
Yeah. Totally, I agree.
But you're not playing the game until you're at least on a board somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of you will get, everybody that's attended will get a document that kind of gives you 5 different areas to think about and the positions that are within those areas. Even if your interest is outside of the 5, the thought process is what we want you to get out of the document.
Just quickly agreeing on everything. I think it also just depends on the type of entry-level role. I think some won't, like in operations customer experience, we're not hiring as frequently, like very low. But on the GTM, like go-to-market side, like we're actually hiring quite a lot next year. So I think it just depends on the space too.
200 years ago, you all should have been farmers. Like, jobs shift, they don't necessarily disappear.
I agree. Yeah.
Humans are good at keeping themselves busy.
Yep.
Hence why there is so much monotony, busy work, even in these high, big companies. Like, chaos shifts, breeds change, change breeds opportunity.
Great.
I think, too, one thing with that for the shrinking job market, and this is a continuation of a trend that's occurred as you've got, even from industrialization, is that as menial tasks have been taken away from people, the mind has been the most valuable commodity, and this is going to go even more. So I think that, considering grad school, considering building these technical things, I think that it's going to be a far more competitive job market because there's just not the mindless drone entry-level positions anymore. They need someone that can correct the AI systems when they're wrong, and that is going to require higher base knowledge. So I would say, graduate degrees, I think, will be what, 10 years from now, graduate degrees will be what undergrad degrees are today.
Yeah, in accounting, we're barely getting the approval to use the Gen AI tools. So and also for CPA now, the requirements is 120, so bachelor's degree. So it's going to be competitive. I'm not going to lie, it's going to be competitive because we're able to use Gen AI. And then also you guys are able to start applying for full-time positions at the end of your bachelor's. So I agree with them, getting your MAC. If any of you guys are in accounting, getting that MAC so you guys could be different from others. Also being it's going to be really competitive. I'm not going to lie, because the shrink in hiring those associates and internships, also getting involved in campus and showcasing that PwC needs you, not you need PwC. Or Big Four needs you, any company needs you, not you need them. So yeah.
Appreciate it. Any final thoughts before we wrap up? Final questions? Yeah, one more back here.
My name is Braxton Loveridge. I'm studying operations management and entrepreneurship. I'm still very much unsure about what I want to do. So I'm in the exploring kind of opportunity space right now. And I'm not in a position like you in an industry where you know exactly what you're doing and you're being exposed to specific ways to use AI and different types. So what could I be doing now, or specific resources to learn about AI and how to apply it in just a general setting?
That's you, Dan.
Exposure. Use it. Try it. Trial and error. Have it tell you how to make fettuccine Alfredo tonight. Follow along with it. Listen to it. You would be surprised how many people are LinkedIn AI gurus and they don't actually use it. They don't actually do anything with it that's productive except for write their LinkedIn guru posts.
So true.
I would be super, I watch my kid in 5th grade learn about this and use this better than most of my coworkers. I watch my dad, who's 72, 73 years old, use it to interface with the web through voice because he still, cherry picks at his keyboard. That magic moment of AI is going to be different for every individual in the world. And the more exposure and familiarity you have with it, the more you know its limitations. Think about when you started first driving a car at 16 and you were very aware of your hands being 10 and 2. You're looking for every single thing on it. That all has become second nature to you at this point. AI is going to feel very similar when you get that level of exposure.
I was just going to say, use free trials and make sure you undownload it before it charges you.
Yeah.
But I would just literally free trial it up on all these tools and just try things. Why not?
Okay. Well, thank you all very much. Let's thank our panelists again. We'll take this one.
Perfect. Thank you all for coming to this. Thank you for the panelists. We have some gift bags for the panel that Zeb and Michael are bringing up right now. The time is now yours from 12 to 12:15. We're going to do some networking because this is the business school. So come on up, get to know these people, and let's make some connections. Thank you for coming today.